I'm going to show you how you can back up and restore your WSL instances, as well as how you can have multiple instances of the same Linux version. So to start, I'm going to open up the terminal and then find out what instances we have available by doing WSL-L-V. And this will tell us on my WSL install, we've got an Ubuntu instance and a Debian instance. So to back up a WSL instance, first we need to create a folder to store our backup. I generally like to put it in the C drive and then create a new folder called WSL. And then within there, we can do a backups folder. So this is where I'm going to store my backups. So the first command we'll want to use is WSL-export, which will let us export the instance. So if we do WSL-export and then the instance name, so in this case we'll export the Debian instance, and then we'll type a file path where we'll want to store the backup. And then we'll give it a name of debian.tar. So for the actual backup name, you can call it whatever you want, as long as it's got a .tar extension. When we run that, it will start the export, and it can take a few minutes depending on the size of the instance. That only took a couple of seconds, but now it says the operation has been completed successfully. And if we come to our folder, we've got a debian.tar backup. The next thing we want to do is create an install folder, as when we restore this backup, we want somewhere to restore it to. So I'll call this installs, and then come back to our terminal. If we want, we can get rid of this Debian instance because we've backed it up by using the WSL-unregister, and then Debian. That will unregister it. So if we do a list, we've now just got our Ubuntu, but if you don't want to delete the Debian instance, you don't have to. You can just restore it with a new name. So now to actually import a tar file, we can do WSL-import, and then the instance name we want to call it. So in this case, I'll call it Debian. But if you've already got a Debian instance, you can't recall it Debian. You have to call it Debian 2 or restore or whatever you want. So I'll call this Debian, and then we'll need to select an install directory. So I'll do C WSL and then installs and then Debian. And then I will select my backup, which is C WSL backups, and then debian.tar. So when I run this, it will take the backup from our backups folder, this debian.tar, and then it will restore it into this Debian folder, and it's restored our ext4 VHD. So now that's restored, if we do a WSL-L-V, we can see we've got our Ubuntu instance and our Debian instance. So to go in and see if it works, we'll do a WSL-D Debian, and then this should take us into our WSL instance, which it has done. If we do a ls, now that's taken us to our C Windows. So if we come down to our Linux folder on our File Explorer, we can see our Debian install, which is our new one. And then we've still got the original text file that I had on my initial instance, which has also been restored. So that's shown us that restore has worked fine. Now, if you want to have two instances with the same name, we can run that install again. So if I exit out of my instance, so we're back in PowerShell, and then come back to our import command, I can import this tar file as many times as I want and just give it different names. So I do import as Debian2, and then create a new install folder and press enter. It will take that original tar file and then create a new install file in WSL installs called Debian2. So if I do WSL-L-V, we've now got two Debian instances which are identical, and we can load into any of them by doing WSL-D Debian2, and that'll take us into our Debian2 instance, which is a totally separate instance, but it's identical. So we've got Debian1, and if I go in and say delete some files, so if I delete this file.txt, and then come back and go into Debian2, home, we've still got the exact same file, but it's a totally separate install. So that's how you can go through and export a file using the export command, the WSL-export, and then how you can use the WSL-import file to import a backup tar file.